Lemonade War Chapter 2 continued. Jessie looked from Evan to Scott and back again. Now she had no idea what to say. I am awfully sorry to hear that you're feeling poorly. Evan didn't seem to make much sense when Evan was obviously having fun with his friends. She tried to think of something else to say. All she could come up with was, "What are you doing?" The boys were bent over a piece of cardboard. Evan was writing letters with a skinny red felt-tip pen. The purple cooler was in the middle of the garage, and two plastic chairs were stacked on top of it. On the top chair was a brown paper bag. "Nothing," said Evan, not looking up. Jessie walked over to the boys and peered over Evan's shoulder. "Lemonade, 50 cents, she said. "You spelled lemonade wrong. It's an O, not an I." But she thought, "Oh, good, a lemonade stand, my favorite thing to do." The boys didn't say anything to Jessie. Jessie saw Evan's mouth tighten up. "You want me to make the lemonade?" she asked. "Already made," said Evan. "I could decorate the sign," she said. "I'm good at drawing butterflies and flowers and things." Scott snorted. "Huh, we don't want girl stuff like that on our sign. Do you want to use my lockbox to keep the money in? It's got a tray with separate compartments for all the different coins." "Nope," said Evan, still working on the sign. "Well," she said, looking around, "I can clean the table for you." The small wooden table, still covered in black streaks, was pushed up against the bikes. "We're not using it," said Evan. "But we always use the table for a stand," said Jessie. Evan pushed his face in her direction. "We don't want it." Jessie took a couple of steps back. Her insides felt runny, like a fried egg that hasn't cooked enough. She knew she should just go back into the house, but for some reason her legs wouldn't move. She stood still, her bare feet rooted to the cool cement. Scott whispered something to Evan, and the two boys laughed, low and mean. Jessie swayed toward the door, but her feet stayed planted. She couldn't stand it that Evan wanted to be with Scott, who was a real jerk, more than her. "Hey," she said, "I bet you need change. I've got a ton. You could have all my change, as long as you pay it back at the end of the day." "Don't need it," said Evan. "Yeah, you do," insisted Jessie. "You always need change, especially in the beginning. You'll lose sales if you can't make change." Evan capped the pen with a loud snap and stuck it in his pocket. "Scott's bankrolling us. His mom keeps a change jar, so we've got plenty." The boys stood up. Evan held the sign for Scott to read, turning his back on Jessie. "Awesome," said Scott. Jessie knew that the sign was not awesome. The letters were too small and thin to read from a distance. Evan should have used a fat marker instead of a skinny felt-tip pen. Everybody knew that. There weren't any pretty decorations to attract customers, and the word lemonade was spelled wrong. Why wouldn't Evan take a little help from her? She just wanted to help. Scott turned to her and said, "Are you really going to be in 4th grade this year?" Jessie's back stiffened. "Yup," she said. "Wow, that is so freaky." "It's not," she said, sticking her chin out. "It is too," said Scott. "I mean, you're a 2nd grader and now you're going to be a 4th grader. That's just messed up." Jessie looked at Evan, but he was busy taping the sign to the cooler. "Lots of people skip grades," said Jessie. "It's not that big a deal." "It's completely weird," said Scott. "I mean, you miss everything from a whole year. You miss the whole unit on Antarctica, and that was the best. And the field trip to the aquarium, and the thing where we sent letters all over the country. Remember that, Evan? You got the letter from Alaska. That was so cool." Evan nodded, but he didn't look up. "It's not that big a deal," said Jessie again, her voice stretched tight like a rubber band. "It's like you miss a year of your life," Scott said. "It's like you're going to die a whole year earlier than the rest of us because you never had 3rd grade. Jessie felt cold and hot at the same time. Part of her wanted to yell, "That doesn't make any sense," but the other part of her felt so freakish, like Scott had just noticed she had 3 legs. Evan stood up and tossed the paper bag to Scott. Then he grabbed the plastic chairs with one hand. "Come on, let's go." He reached down to grab one handle of the cooler. Scott grabbed the other, and together they lifted it and began to walk out of the garage. "Hey, Evan," said Jessie.